No, stay away from me. You don't want any part of me. I have visions of my dead father. It's okay, Sam. I have visions of my dead uncle, too. He was Stu.
Check out my pecs, little man!
Hello Sydneys, thanks so much for clicking on this video. My name is Chris. The new Scream movie has finally released in theaters, and what I'm going to be doing here for you guys in this video is giving you my full spoiler review on the new Scream, Scream 5. I'll be diving into the Easter eggs involved with the movie, giving you my ending, explain who Ghostface was, what was their motive, and even speculating on what they could do with another movie. But this is not just about me, guys. I'm gonna need you Scream fans to leave me your thoughts and opinions down below. Do not hold back in that comment section. A big theme of this movie was fandom and our perception of these movies, so don't hold back whether you agree with me or disagree with me on our thoughts of this movie. And as a quick side note, this weekend I'll also be making another video where I'll not only be ranking all 5 of the Scream movies, in that same video I'm also going to go ahead and rank for you guys other parts of the Scream movies, like the best opening sequence, who was the best Ghostface, so be sure to stay tuned this weekend for this video. Alright, so now getting into the spoiler review and everything going on, I will be putting timestamps in the description so you can skip around. I'll be going into the Easter eggs of the movie first, then giving you my spoiler review, the parts I loved and hated in this movie, and then speculating on what they could do with Scream 6. Alright, so starting off with the Easter eggs in Scream 5, sticking to the really big ones, because obviously they mentioned a lot of horror movies in there, but they tell you what horror movies they're talking about, so it'd be a waste of time if I talk about those. In the very beginning of the movie, we see Tara is on the phone with Ghostface, and they start talking about the Stab movies, and at one point, Tara goes ahead and Googles the cast for Stab, which had a lot of people we didn't know was part of that movie before. A lot of 90s stars, some that were in the show Friends with Courtney Cox, like David Schwimmer, was revealed to be in that movie. That's going to be something fun to go ahead and pause this movie and see the full casting of everyone in that first Stab movie. Whenever Sam and Richie finally make their way to Woodsboro and enter the town, we see that there is a sign that reads Elm Street. This is a nice little Easter egg to Nightmare on Elm Street, as Wes Craven, the director of the past 4 movies, was the creator of that first one. We also find out through the course of the movie that Vince is actually the nephew of Stu. That's Matthew Lillard's character from the first movie. He's the son of Stu's sister, and now we know that Stu has a sister somewhere. And on that subject, talking about Vince, the iconic Scream song Red Right Hand that plays in the first Scream movie starts blasting out of his car when Ghostface goes to attack him. One surprising cameo that not a lot of us were expecting here was Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich. With a mix of makeup and de-aging, he actually turns out to be the father of Sam, our main character. Gonna have a lot of thoughts about that later on in this review. Whenever Sam and Richie finally go see Dewey, we can see a box of the ashes for Tatum. That was his sister in the first movie. Once Dewey finally decides that he does want to step up and help Sam and Richie go after Ghostface, as he's walking into the driveway of Mindy and Chad's house, he gets his iconic cowboy theme from Scream 2. Really happy they included that theme. Once inside the house of Mindy and Chad, we find out that they are actually the niece and nephew of Randy, where they even have a little memorial remembering their uncle. And I guess on that topic of kids who are related to other characters from the Scream movies, we know Wes Hicks is the son of Judy Hicks. Inside their house, she does leave a sticky note on the fridge saying that she left lemon squares for her son, which is something she was kind of known for in Scream 4.
Your lemon squares taste like ass.
We also get big mentions on the Stab movies that are like a very vital part of this new Scream film. And everything we know about the Stab movies still seems to fall in line with this series, because even Richie at one point mentions that the series kind of went off the rails from Stab 5, and that's probably because
Stab 5 has time travel, which is by far the worst.
And updating us now that the new Stab movie, Stab 8, was actually directed by Rian Johnson, not naming him, but saying the guy who directed Knives Out. And again, knowing that the theme of this movie is about toxic fandom, and Rian Johnson being one of those directors who always gets hate on because of what he did with The Last Jedi, that was kind of perfect. One surprising cameo that made me super jealous is whenever Richie is on YouTube, he's actually watching Dead Meat, James and his wife Chelsea, who are essentially playing themselves, talking about Stab 8 and how much they hate it and they think it ruined the franchise. As a YouTuber though, that was kind of cool to see that they did that for them. Also on that same page though, when you look at the YouTube screen of Richie's, off to the side in the recommended video, there was one letting you know that Kirby was still alive from the events of Scream 4, and she was being interviewed about that. So there you go, we have our answer. Kirby is officially alive in this universe. Whenever Sydney is talking on the phone with Dewey, she also mentions that her husband's name is Mark. This most likely is pointing to Mark Kincaid, the detective cop from Scream 3. So that's kind of cool to know that she married him, and if not, I guess it could be another Mark. One blink and you might miss it, Roman, the Ghostface from Scream 3, does make a cameo in this movie. Whenever Tara's character is in the hospital watching TV, she's watching an episode of Dawson's Creek, not only written by Kevin Williamson, the writer of the franchise, but also an episode that contains Scott Foley in it. That was kind of cool, and you can even play that into the universe. Since his character Roman does work in Hollywood, you could kind of imply maybe he got his start acting before he became a director in Scream 3. Mindy, the niece of Randy, at one point is sitting in the house of Stu's wearing a similar color scheme to her uncle and watching Stab, to where she even recreates the famous scene at Randy yelling at the TV to turn around, only this time she actually does. I actually really liked that and thought it was clever. And those were just the Easter eggs I caught when watching this movie. If there was any you caught that I might have missed, feel free to add them down below. But now getting on to my spoiler thoughts with this movie. I really liked this film. I thought it was really well done. I've seen the movie 2 times now, and I really wanted to see if it would hold up a second time now knowing who Ghostface is by the end and their motives, and I feel like it makes the movie even better watching it a second time knowing what everything really is about. Starting off from the beginning of the film, the opening sequence sold me right away. I liked what they did there, and I thought maybe they were running out of ideas with these opening sequences because I wasn't a fan of the opening in Scream 4. But the way it plays out with Tara's character I thought was so brilliant, especially with her talking about elevated horror movies like The Babadook, It Follows, Hereditary, and even Ghostface kind of making fun of them, saying, aren't those a little too fancy-pantsy? Which in a weird way, I was kind of siding on Ghostface with that, because it's always 50-50 with me whether I end up liking those movies. I like It Follows, I like Hereditary, I did like The Babadook, but there was other ones I couldn't get into, like The Witch or Midsommar, so it was fun to know that they were kind of poking fun of those movies and saying, a stab film, they're just about kills, there's no real character development, when I'm like, nah, the Scream franchise does have some of that. Chill out now. Also, even the way they use Roger L. Jackson's voice in that sequence where he just starts off sounding like a regular person, talking about group, dropping some details about the mother for Sam and Tara, which I definitely want to talk about later in this video. It reminded me a lot like the opening in the first movie where Ghostface was not evil straight out the gate or just saying out the words, do you like scary movies? It was a progressionary build where he went from sounding like an ordinary guy to then being menacing as hell, and that's what I love. Plus, when Ghostface came out, that was pretty brutal the way he was attacking Tara. I mean, the girl was beaten, stabbed in the stomach, in the legs, through the frickin' hand, which is something that we did kind of see in Scream 4, but still. Also, the way Ghostface just went out and broke her leg, I'm like, this dude is brutal. But they went ahead and broke the standard because one, there's usually 2 people involved with the opening. This time around, it was just 1. And second, she survived, but we come to find out that was actually the point. She's supposed to survive so that it could go ahead and lure Sam to come back to Woodsboro. So that was smart of in itself, and I thought it was a good reason for why Ghostface let Tara live. The other thing they also went ahead and broke the mold of is every time after the opening sequence, it was tradition that you go ahead and let us know what Sidney Prescott is doing because she's the main character, but nope, we go to see exactly what Sam is doing because now she's the main character of this movie. Which, let's just talk about that. I was okay with them trying to introduce a brand new character into the franchise and sort of pass the torch along. I didn't think that meant, though, that we would see such little time for Gale and Sidney in this movie. I was kind of missing them a lot in this film, and I hate that they kind of showed up a little too late and it didn't feel like they got enough to do. Maybe they have plans for them to be included more in the franchise, and the whole purpose of this movie was for us to like the new characters. But you know what? There actually was a lot more new characters in here that I ended up liking than I thought I would. Tara was super likable for me, and I kind of wish she was actually the main star of this new franchise. Not to say there's anything wrong with Sam's character, but I ended up just feeling more attached and intrigued with Jenna's character over Sam's. I just feel there's something cliche about the runaway daughter who pushes away everyone in their life because they're afraid to be loved. It just didn't seem that interesting for me. Chad was one that surprised me. I honestly thought the dude was just gonna be a musclehead jock who's all into football and was gonna die pretty quickly in this movie, but the guy actually has some charm to him. He was funny to me. The way he's making out with his girlfriend and she's like, you wanna go, fool around? And he's like, I'm not sure if you're the killer or not, so no thank you. Even the way he was kind of goofy and wanting to stand up to Vince and fight for his love, saying, welcome to Hobbs and Shaw. I was like, I like this guy. I'm so happy he survived by the end of it, even though I'm like, boy, you got stabbed a little too many times. You should not have survived that. But either way, happy he did though, because I ended up liking him. But the one I ended up liking the most out of the new cast members was Mindy. She really fills in the shoes of the new Randy so well. The monologue she has early on in the movie when all the cast members are meeting at her house and she's like, oh my god, Ghostface is making a requel. And then she goes on to talk about what a movie sometimes means to people, I thought was so brilliantly done. Because I was really connecting to everything she was saying in that moment. She's like, these aren't just movies to some people. These movies are life to others. These are the movies they sat down with and saw with their parents. These are the movies that they hold special. And so when a studio does something like this in rebooting, making a sequel, not calling it Scream 5, there's gonna be a fan base that's upset and feels hurt by it. And I just liked how that monologue just captured everything and basically explained to you what was going on in this movie. It was just like some of the best writing in this movie. Diving into some things I wasn't 100% into before I go back to praising this movie is I could have done without the Billy Loomis cameo. Don't get me wrong, it was cool to see Skeet Ulrich come back and play Billy Loomis, but the way they went about it, I thought the de-aging and makeup they had on his face looked perfectly fine. I've seen some people go ahead and complain with the de-aging, but I'm like, it was suitable enough. Just because you know they're using de-aging doesn't mean it was bad de-aging. I'm just not the biggest fan of a ghost character haunting you. It was one of the things I disliked in Scream 3 whenever Sydney was seeing visions of her mother. Which right there, that should let you know it's already in line and part of the franchise. So to anybody who completely hated it and thought it came out of nowhere, they did it in Scream 3. Sydney was seeing her dead parent. And now Sam's character, the new Sydney, is seeing the same thing. So it's already happened in the franchise, which is why I'm willing to forgive it a little bit. I guess it was just more when she would have conversations with Billy. And the way he just repeatedly kept popping out throughout the movie, especially in the finale, like when she's looking at the car window and Billy's just looking at her like, you did good, my daughter. I know I'm a villain and started everything, but I'm proud of you. So I will give kudos at the movie for trying and pulling that sweet cameo. I just felt like maybe it could have been executed better. As far as Sam actually being related to Billy Loomis, I thought that was a cool plot point to put in there. We all had assumed that maybe one of them would have been related to the original Ghostface of the first movie. I actually had no idea it was going to be Sam. I honestly thought it was going to be Jack Quaid, Richie, who was going to be related to Billy from the past. But it seems like one point Billy in high school went ahead and cheated on Sydney, add that to his list of crimes, and had a baby with somebody else. That also kind of makes sense. If you remember, one of the motives of Billy was that Sydney was no longer sleeping with him. Even Randy brought it up. There's points in the first Scream movie where Billy is like trying to touch Sydney and he's kind of mad that she won't let him.
I have a girlfriend who would rather accuse me of being a psychopathic than touch me.
So the boy was definitely deprived of that and he found it somewhere else. So it makes sense to me that he was a cheater. Something else that I wouldn't really say it's a negative, but I am mixed about is the way they did the death of Dewey Riley. Oh, they got my sheriff! I was so sad and in so much pain witnessing on screen seeing Dewey be axed off. The first time I watched it and even sitting through this movie, I was honestly really mad. I was like, no, I don't know if I can like this movie now. You got rid of one of my favorite characters in the franchise. But then watching the movie a second time and seeing the way they handled it, it was done well. David Arquette as Dewey was the best legacy character in this movie. He got a lot to do as this weathered down cop who was retired. I even like some of the relationships he was having with the new cast members in the house of Mindy and Chad, and he tells Wes, maybe you're Ghostface. Because that insult just cut deep. Also, just the heartbreaking conversation he has with Gail Weathers outside of the house of Judy, where he just talks about he couldn't make it in New York, that he was actually the one that left the relationship because he's just someone who's chained bolt to Woodsboro and can't leave it. It was some great character development that goes with the movie. We've seen them be on and off, and this time it wasn't even Gail's fault. It was Dewey who couldn't handle it, and he called himself a coward, and the movie proved he wasn't. He always stood up to Ghostface and was willing to go after it, knowing the risk, even following the rules that Randy left behind, where you have to shoot them in the face or else they're coming back. And then the way they did it with a double stab front to back, being grinded up with blood everywhere, and Ghostface saying it's an honor because he's the one that got to go ahead and axe off a legacy character that survived so much. And even the movie goes ahead and has this awesome frame of Dewey dead on the ground and Ghostface just standing over him holding two knives, letting you know This ain't your papa's franchise, this is new. I'm willing to accept now that the movie's earned it. One of the things I complained about with the last two Scream movies is that these legacy characters felt invincible. It got to a point now that just because these characters have survived this long in the franchise, it feels like they just can't die. And this movie proved that no, they still can. So I'd be a hypocrite to go ahead and complain in the last two movies that, man, I never feel any suspense with these legacy characters. They always survive. And then this movie, how could you kill him? I hate you. And okay, right before we get to the reveal of Ghostface and their motives, one more thing that I love this movie did that I was like, that was pretty damn clever of you. The whole point Dylan Minnette was in this movie and was named Wes is so that they can go ahead and have a party with the words for Wes in the movie. I like that you did that. Even though I actually was liking the character of Wes throughout the movie, just this sweet little innocent kid who had a crush on Tara and even had this overprotective mother, I felt really bad for when they went ahead and axed off Judy Higgs. She went down in such a cruel way in broad daylight trying to protect her child with Ghostface just stabbing and stabbing. There's some people who say this movie wasn't as brutal as the rest, but I think it was. Just the way they go ahead and show some of the stabbing. Most of the time in the past franchise, Ghostface stabs once and that person falls to the ground. Here, people got stabbed multiple times, blood was spewing, and the sound effects they used, I think, enhanced it. But yeah, just seeing good little son Wes set the table for his mom, not knowing she's dead right outside his door, and then the way he finally goes ahead and gets axed off with a knife to the neck that goes through all the way, brutal. The man was really only there so the movie can go ahead and play tribute to Wes Craven, and I think that was kind of cool. But alright, now to the reveal of who Ghostface was and their motive. So by the end of the movie, we find out that it was Amber and Richie who went ahead and planned everything. Now, before I get into their motives, I just want to go ahead and say a lot of us saw it coming. I think whenever Jack Quaid was announced to play Richie in the movie, everyone had guessed that he would most likely be Ghostface, and we were right. But this is the first Scream movie where it's kind of clicked in my head now. It's not really about who's Ghostface. It's about why they're doing it. You gotta admit, with these Scream movies, there's always gonna be a way for you to figure out who is actually behind the mask. And I think it's so dumb the people who go ahead and say, I guessed it was him. It was so obvious. I could tell. Now the movie's ruined for me because I'm so smart. They definitely did enough in this movie where they played with the whodunit to where even I was thinking it could be Richie and someone else in this movie. Through the course of the film, I was like, I guess it can be Richie. He seems so nice, sweet, and innocent. Love Sam's character. Maybe I have to pick someone else. And then when it was revealed to be him and the way he stabbed Sam, I was like, they frickin' did it. Oh my god. But what made me like it more was the motive. The whole reason they're doing this is because they are fans of the Stab franchise and have gotten so mad with what Hollywood has done with the series ever since Stab 5. That's something that they've joked about. Stab 5 introduced time travel. And then from there, it just got so bad that eventually with Rian Johnson as the director of Stab 8, they went ahead and changed his mask. They gave him a metallic one. They changed his outfit where he no longer has sleeves. And they even got rid of his signature weapon, the knife, and gave him a flamethrower. Imagine if they really did that in the next movie, and that's what Ghostface looked like. Metallic mask, sleeveless, with a flamethrower, no knife. You would be pissed too. This whole commentary and theme about toxic fandom and how much these movies mean to people, I thought was so smart and brilliant and makes me like the movie a lot more, especially with the people who are walking out of this movie hating it. Because I'm already seeing it firsthand in my comment section with people saying, I knew who Ghostface was all along. The movie was so predictable. I hated it. It was dumb. And if you're someone who lets this movie get ruined for you just because you guessed who Ghostface was without their motive and still don't like the movie, then you're not really paying attention to the themes and the commentary that the franchise is known for. I love how I'm even seeing other Scream fans understanding what this movie was going for, where I've seen this kind of reaction online. I wasn't crazy about the motive until I started seeing everybody tearing each other up apart for having different opinions. Many of you proved the filmmakers right about toxic fandom. Credit to the filmmakers for turning a light on the fans. Another one from someone else who said, honestly, I wasn't happy with the killer's motive seeing it, but now reading all the discourse and division amongst fans is actually making me like the motive a lot more. It's like the reverse meta. And that's where I just fall with this movie being so brilliant with its theme and motive, because me, even someone who's a YouTuber and talks about different kinds of movies, I see it every day with the fans who get really angry. That's why I don't know if this movie would have connected very well to people outside of the movie space who are not in the circle always seeing the attacks that other people have. We've witnessed it firsthand with the Star Wars franchise. Like I mentioned to you guys, people went crazy after The Last Jedi to the point where they were bullying celebrities off social media. They even mentioned in this movie how there's fans who hate social commentary being thrown into their movies, or that they're making them woke, where I've seen people call this movie woke. I think it's just such damn good ironic writing. There was even a little tidbit in there with Amber's character, where after Gail and Sydney get the upper hand on her and she's like, no, wait, it's not my fault, I was radicalized, that I was brainwashed, is kind of what happens to some of these younger movie fans. Think about the movie fans that are like 8 or 10 years old that are just now getting on the internet, joining subreddits, watching YouTube videos, and they start seeing videos about people calling this movie woke, or that Hollywood is just doing this for this reason. And they're so young and afraid to be different or have a thought of their own, so they're brainwashed into a cult. Is again just showing you how smart this movie was with its themes. And I've even seen some people say that the motive is too similar to 4, and I'm like, you're not paying attention to the movies. This motive was nothing like the one in 4. Jill in the 4th movie did not care about the stab movies. If anything, she probably hated them. Her motive was just that she wanted the fame and attention that Sydney had, and if she got that, then she would have a stab movie that was about her. She would have loved that. Her partner Charlie also wasn't doing it to make a better stab movie. That boy actually loved all 7 stab movies, even if they were bad, to the point that he would host a stabathon in celebration of these movies. So he liked what the studio was doing and didn't want to make his own version. His motive was just really he loved Jill and the stab movie, so he was happy to join along. That's nothing like the motive of Richie and Amber, who love the first 3 stab movies and then hate what happened to the rest of them to the point they feel like they can make a better one. They don't even want to get caught or be the heroes. They just literally want Hollywood to make a better stab movie, and they were giving them the source material for that. The only negative I have about it though is I felt like it was so rushed. I was so in the moment and loving everything about it, but then once it was revealed what they were doing, it was like, okay, runtime's happening, we gotta kill these guys now. I would have liked to have lived in that moment a little more, have a little more of a conversation on it. But either way, I think it's a smart motive. It's even more ironic seeing these really negative fans be so mad at the movie, and I'm like, you see how mad you are about it? You're basically proving the movie right. My favorite line from Richie in that final act moment is when he says, how can fandom be toxic? It's about love. And that's what I find interesting, because there are fans out there who are so mean and rude to others, but they're doing it out of so much love for the franchise. Hopefully that can make some people like it more, but if not, hey, I understand, and you're still entitled to your opinion. Don't go going Ghostface on me now. So talking about now what they could do with the next Scream movie, because I think they're for sure going to make another one, even if they didn't set it up. There are a couple of things I think that they left open for the table that could be explored in the next Scream film. For one, I think the parents of some of these cast members are going to become very important. There was a reason they didn't show us at all what the mom of Sam and Tara looked like, but we know she's an intriguing character because we know she was in love with Billy Loomis. The way Sam describes her mom's diary and the infatuation she had for Billy and wanting to have her kid, I think already makes her a suspect for the next movie, because if she meets Sydney, she's going to hate Sydney, and Billy was just too obsessed with Sydney that it made her jealous. Same thing even goes for the father of Tara. Now, the father of Tara is not the father of Sam, we learned that, but he could come back into the picture wanting to re-enter Tara's life, and maybe wants to get rid of Sam in the process, since she's actually not his daughter and is the reason their family broke up. That would be crazy to see. The man who raised you becomes Ghostface. They also didn't show us the father of Mindy or Chad. That could be an interesting character that comes in here. Heck, even if they wanted to, the parent of Vince, that's Stu's sister. Would it not be kind of crazy to see the sister of Stu wanting to get some revenge because her baby boy died? As a side note with Vince, I hate how early on they got rid of his character. Kyle Gallner should have gotten something bigger. And also his scene was cut short because in the trailers it's longer and has this amazing silhouette of Ghostface on a brick wall. And they didn't put it in the movie. Like, that shot is so awesome. Why wasn't that in the film? Plus with Kirby alive, there's really already a packed cast for this next movie where you'll have Sam, Tara, Mindy, Chad, Sydney, and Gail if they want to come back, which I feel like they will. To me, it would just be, what's the theme of this next movie? movie now? What social commentary on horror or the movie community could they touch upon? That's, I think, what will make or break the next movie, and I think you gotta do something different. You gotta invent things a little bit. No more 2 ghost faces or 1 ghost face. Let's have like 3 or 4. I feel like we've worn out the whole 2 ghost faces who die by the end of this movie. Let's have 1 survive. Let's follow 1 for the next movie. But yeah, that's what I think they'll do with the next movie, is bring in some of the parent characters of the new ones while the surviving members all get together, whether they're in college or some other thing. Leave me your guys' casting on who you would want the mom to be for Melissa Barrera and Sam's character, because I feel like she's going to be the biggest one in the next movie. My girlfriend after the movie was like, Jennifer Lopez, and I'm like, what? No. Actually, that's not bad. Yeah, sure. But that is just all my thoughts with the new Scream film. Leave me your guys' thoughts down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Don't hold back and look forward to that ranking video later in the week. As always, my name is Chris. Take care.